Zach, it's crazy how you're one of my closest friends now. It just came from doing content, putting stuff out there, and we're recording on my birthday. So there's no person who I would rather have on as a birthday guest and just a person I appreciate so much. And our phone conversations are so rewarding. We always say like, why don't we record this? So I'm excited to finally record a long episode in person, which we've never done actually before.
I know we haven't. Last time was when we were basically strangers, just like on a video call. First time we met.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of good conversations since then. So this will be good.
Yeah.
It's really good.
So I have a bunch of stuff we can talk about. We can go in a different direction. But I think the last time we spoke, one of the things that we both thought was interesting was that growth on social media is related to growth as a human being. And the example I used was my new friend Dilma, who wanted to start a podcast, but once she started exercising every day, after 30 days, she finally started and had the podcast out. So I thought that was interesting. We could talk about that if you want and just go from there.
Yeah, we did talk about that. And I think it's absolutely true. Like your growth on social media, especially when you're doing it in an authentic, the right way, it's directly correlated to your growth as a person. And I think that's just, when you're growing as a person, usually you're providing more value to yourself, and it's almost you're creating more for yourself. And I think that translates directly to content. I think you had an interview with Miss Excel, right?
Yeah.
And she put this so well, where she makes Excel content, you could call it that, but really what she said so well is she's transferring energy through the screen. And I think it's absolutely true. And like the best posts I write sometimes, like they'll have typos. They won't even be like complete. They won't even make sense grammatically, but it's just in the moment. The idea was right. The idea was like pure. And even if it's just text, and those do the best because the energy's there and I'm in the right state of mind, and that goes through to the person reading it.
But dude, you don't have any typos on your...
All the time I do. No, all the time I do. Like,
do you delete them or...
No, almost never.
Because I haven't seen any posts with you having typos in them.
There's plenty. And there's plenty. And I always get called out for it. It's like, dude, come on, you have to take it seriously. Like, you have typos, but the post is doing amazing. Like, people obviously still like it.
Yeah, it's because you're just in that moment. You're so excited about the thought or idea, and then it comes through in a real way that hits people.
Yeah.
So, like, how did we talked a little bit in our first conversation, episode 81, about how you started putting out content in general. But I'm curious, looking back on it now, what are some of the things you've learned from your Instagram, Twitter, and just putting out content in general that you didn't expect or that have surprised you?
One thing is how easy it is to reach people that you think are unreachable.
Yeah.
And like it's insane. Some of the people who follow my page and like the people that I would never interact with otherwise, but now they're just there just because I put something out into the world. And I think like so many people can relate to that. If you put content, like you don't know who's listening and watching or reading, and it's easier to reach these people than you think. And another one is just like, yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like the world is smaller than you think, I think. And like related, people think when you have like millions of followers that it's impossible to reach these people. They have no time and like you can never get through to them. But I think these people have less interactions than some people think. They're just better at organizing them. And I think if you can stand out in a purposeful way, you can connect with more people. And I think you've done that really well.
What do you mean by that? They're better at organizing.
Like they get a lot of inbound, but they're good at filtering it. But they don't necessarily get so much that it's impossible to reach them. I'm not explaining it the best. But what I mean is that these people you think are getting bombarded with messages all day, 99% of those messages, one, there's not that many. And two, 99% of them are just nothingness. They're BS. And so they ignore them. And so if you can be that 1% that's actually meaningful, you can reach a lot of people.
And did you find that also the case of like you started, for you, when you get the inbound, is it similar where 99% are like not worth your time to respond to or?
Yeah. Honestly, like most of the messages are just like nothing and you get good at filtering. And so the few people who do reach out, I usually answer every one of them, literally.
And what makes for a message that you're going to respond to?
it's quicker, it's quick, and it's actually the person isn't asking you to solve their life problems, and they're asking you for a specific thing in a very quick and brief way, and I'll answer every single one of those people, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was a long tangent, but the point was like, even someone who has millions of followers, they're getting they're getting not as many meaningful messages as you think. And so if you can be those meaningful messages, you can reach more people than you think.
And also another point of this is that people who are in those positions to receive messages are always looking for ways in which they've helped out people in their own life. And so like if you think about a business operates and wants to see the positive reviews to know that they're doing a good job. So every person in that sense is like a business. So I want to talk to you about your own business, Peak Photo Booths, which I actually worked for last summer. That was one of my favorite memories of just connecting with people. And I really appreciate you giving me that opportunity. What's it been like now, 4 or 5 years running?
About, yeah.
How has that shaped your perception of reality running that business? Describe a little bit about the business as well.
Yeah, so the business, for anyone who's unfamiliar, we're a modern photo booth rental company, mainly servicing weddings, sweet 16s, other types of parties and corporate events. And like if you've been to a wedding or a sweet 16, you've probably seen a photo booth. You have the big screen and you have the person helping take pictures. You stand in front of a backdrop and then you get the photo strip prints. That's basically what we do. And yeah, I've been doing it since college. There's no crazy story of how I started it. I didn't have some epiphany. I worked for a company that did something very similar, then went upstate New York to Binghamton, where I was in college, and started the business there. That was like about 5 years ago. And yeah, it's been very, up, down, and then all the way up now because of what happened with COVID. Obviously affected my business a lot for that 1 year. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey. When I started it, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I had no experience with business or anything. And I was charging, $100 for a full event, which is just like ridiculous now. That was less than I'd make like working. I would drive 8 to 9 hours to service like one event. And I did that multiple times because what happened was I was running the business in Binghamton, upstate New York, and living on Long Island like in the summers. And so I was so crazy enough and like hungry enough, I guess, or just delusional, that I would drive like 8 hours one way to go service this event and then come home. And since then, it has grown so much, especially this last year with the pandemic dying down a lot.
And we talked about how in our first conversation, you watching reality over by Big Sean, the video, you watch it over and over again, and you played these voice notes or had these voice notes that you would actually turn into reality later on. And it's just cool watching you develop it. But what's also interesting is that there have been particular moments when you've been hotter on the photo booth and particular moments when you've been colder on it in terms of your own interest, maybe it was the own income coming in. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but like, where are you today in terms of interest, scaling it out? At one point you said, I want to be the biggest photo booth company in the country. And I can do that if I want to do that.
Yeah.
Another point, you're like, got interested in Web3 heavy. And you're like, well, I'm not so hot on photo booths. And it's been interesting following the journey and seeing at particular points in time how your interests have changed and how you've maintained doing the same thing, but at different levels of interest. So where are you on it right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you've seen a lot of the journey, honestly. So you're absolutely right. My interest has gone up and down, and it has been related to obviously the income the business is making, but also where I see the business going. And it's changed over time. And look, I'm definitely not passionate about photo booths. Like, that pretty well. But what I am passionate about, and I've realized, is understanding something about a market and creating something new in that market, some new model or product and service. And I credit all the success Peak Photo Booths has is to that. And I'll explain that in a second. That I love, like that obsession with like seeing the gaps in what people really want and what people are really willing to pay for, and creating a package around that and getting, rewarded with money. That is so fun to me. And so that part I love, and that process I love. And so where I'm at today, like I was, where I'm at today is I have a vision for exactly where I want to take the company, and that is it. but that vision is very specific and does not, and involves me going on to do other things. I just think I tweeted this last night. I was like, a good idea is a really dangerous thing. Because a bad idea is like a quick death. A bad idea is like doesn't work and it's over. But a good idea can like seduce you and make you think it's going to become this unbelievable thing, while you could have instead went and chased this great idea that would have been unbelievable. But instead you were chasing this good idea just because you had it first. And the reality is the photo booth was the first thing I started, but I don't want it to be the thing that I finished just because of the problem I'm solving. It's like the Elon quote, you're paid in proportion to the problems you solve. It's just not a big enough problem, in my opinion, even if I did every photo booth in the entire world for every wedding in the world, Maybe that would be a significant business, but you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So where the business is at now is we've done really well at, we have these unique packages that we do that...
You're still running the TikTok package?
Don't do that one anymore. But yeah, that was like an example. Like we did the first technically TikTok photo booth in the world, literally. First TikTok photo booth experience. And that was cool because I hadn't seen no one do it. And we did a lot of events with that, but it just became too difficult to outsource because, and I'll explain that in a second. But basically what the business is now, it's a local Northeast photo booth company. And we do specifically very high-end packages. The photo booth is very commoditized. And so this is basically the business model in a nutshell. It's a very commoditized industry where basically the standard photo booth rental company, there are hundreds of them probably in Long Island just alone. Maybe not hundreds, but hundreds in the Northeast alone, dozens and dozens on Long Island. And they're all basically the same. And you can get that product for very cheap. You can get that service for $400-ish bucks, literally $400 to $500 for a wedding. And it's pretty much the same. But what we've done is really craft these specific experiences. So one we have is called the Glam Booth. We've done this. I don't know if we called it that when you worked like over a year ago. We might have, but basically branding around these very specific styles. And so that Glam Booth, to give you like a mental image, it's black and white. It's very premium looking. There's like a special blush filter on it, big photo strip prints, very minimalist and classy. And we're looking for that, high-end bride who's spending a lot on their wedding. They don't have a budget, they don't have a tight budget. They obviously have a budget of some sort usually, but they're planning 6 months in advance. They're booking their photo booth in advance, and we're looking for that type of client. Another thing we did is we incorporated flower walls and hedge walls and custom decor into the photo booth package. That was something no one else was really doing also. And so those two things are literally the reason this business is successful, because we're not just a photo booth company, which is what 99% do it. And they have like, whatever, premium, platinum, gold package, whatever. It's like we have these specific things that people are searching for, literally. And you can look at, Google Trends and see people searching for these things. And now they find us and they have this package, which is exactly what they want. And so my vision for the company now is to be the best. So this Glam Booth, basically like 95% of our business, especially for the rest of the year, because that's just how we've been doing it. We're doing a ton of weddings with this booth. It's actually crazy. And I want us to expand throughout the country. And we already are doing this with a network of subcontractors who, these are people who are, doing the photo booths for like $400, $500, can offer this experience. They just don't understand the branding side of it. And so we're connecting with those people and giving them great work and giving them really good pay compared to what they were getting. And it's like a win-win for everybody, because we're able to just, through the brand, like we have glambooth.com. It's an amazing name. And through that brand, we're able to really increase the pricing power. And that's the vision for it. Yeah.
It's a couple of things. So one is that one of the reasons why I personally think you've been successful is you're such a good designer of making things look good, branding. Thanks. And ability to, like, if you just go to Peak Photo Booths and you go to the website, it is so different than how you would see most photo booth companies. And it looks like a 21st century approach, and just, it looks so much better than most other photo booths. And yeah, so that's probably a quick thing. That, where do you think you got the design skills? Because you notice the design also in the writing, which we talked about, where it's like your writing is almost like designing itself.
Yeah.
So
first, thanks by the website. I don't think it's that great. Like, that's the same like back end of the website I've had since the beginning, honestly. And I got to show you the website for glambooth.com, which is almost live. It's so sick. It's
Hopefully
Webflow.
It'll be live by the time we
I think it will be. Yeah, it's like the next week. It's like you have like an animation when you scroll down where the photo strips like fly down the page. It's like you feel it's really good. But yeah, I don't where that came from. Yeah, I definitely do try to like make things look good, like almost like obsessively, and like moving things. I use Canva for a lot of stuff. It's just so easy. But whether it's Keynote or Photoshop, like playing with things over and over, even though they don't matter, like that's what really matters. I think sometimes like adjusting things that don't matter. You'll see that difference between creators, like the colors are off or the fonts are off. There's blurry places. You want it to look professional. I think I've done that, even though my first posts were so lame. Like it's been clean somewhat since day one. I'm not sure where that came from to give you an answer, but I do try to do it like with the writing. It's visual, and the way you read it, I want it to like look good and sound good. Like I always read the posts out loud, almost always, because I want it to like sound good in your head. Because I think when someone is responding to you, when I get comments like, "Oh my God, this was like a gut punch," or "This stabbed me in like the heart," whatever.
Yeah,
it's like I think the way it reads in someone's brain is like that. It's like the better designed the content is, like the stronger it hits. And yeah, I have like inspirations. I think a lot of it is being able to pay attention to things and like study other designers. And like that's not just like having like a swipe file of like inspiration. Like I have that. One app I really like, it's called My Mind. mymind.com. Maybe you'll find it. It's by this designer. It's like I'm kind of pissed actually because it's limited free, so I'll probably pay for get the paid one. But it really clean way to save inspiration. So I have like a ton of inspiration on there. But just like paying attention to design you like, and that your audience will like, and stealing things and taking things. That's a skill that I think is hard to teach, but it's important.
Ali Abdaal said that one of the reasons why he was most successful, especially early on, was because he knew how to design things, and he knew branding, and he knew how to create thumbnails that were exciting. And I think it's so similar to your approach with design in general. And in addition to being a designer, I also was going through your Twitter and Instagram before this, obviously, and it's like, you're also a philosopher in a way. It seems that way. Like, and when I was listening to a previous podcast with you, it was like, I just love to learn. Like I could learn all day. That's like a superpower of yours. So it's like designer, philosopher, learner. Like, are these things that you would use to describe you?
I definitely wouldn't.
Definitely wouldn't, which is interesting.
No, like I would never introduce myself like with those things.
Why
and
not?
I have in the past. Like I think it's funny. I tweeted once like, and I still stand by it. It's like the more stuff, I think you might have, someone disagreed with this. It might have, I don't think it was you, but it's like the more stuff you put in your bio that you are, the less you actually are.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. I maybe do those things, but like I wouldn't label myself like that.
Interesting. And
like my favorite follows are people who have almost nothing in their bio. It's just like the companies they have, but not in like a gloating way. But
the work speaks for themselves.
The work speaks for itself. Like there are examples, but the bad examples I'm talking about. People who are like Web3 strategist, digital marketing expert, like that type of stuff. There's definitely a correlation there between how much they actually put out.
And with you spend so much time studying media, studying how people communicate. And I think that is part of your success as well. When did you know you were interested in media in general?
That's hard. I don't know. I always wanted to have a following of some sort, like really badly. From like the first influence I really had was I think Christian Guzman. I think I've said that before.
Yeah.
And I was just obsessed with his vlogs when he started. So I think that was when it first wanted to. But that's really it. When I first got into media, I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah. Because so much of what you do is like, how do people communicate? Who's communicating well? Who's communicating in a way that is real to me? And how can I copy that in a way that's authentic to me? Is what I see you doing. Do you agree?
I think so. Can you say the question again? Like, how do I copy that?
No, I'm just wondering if you agree that so much of what you do is taking what other people are doing, how they're communicating, and doing it in a way that's authentic to you.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So it's interesting because like I knew I was going to be interested in media when I was 5 years old. I told my friend when I was 6, why don't we create something to take over the New York Times? Like,
I love it.
6 years old doing
Young
that.
Danny Miranda.
Right? But it's like with you, is there any influence from childhood where you're like, oh, it's from this or it's from that?
I don't think so. I was obsessed with video games when I was younger. And
That's
like
right.
had-
Can we get into that?
Well,
You as a young video game
There's not too much to get into.
superstar.
I had a YouTube channel called like Dackles. I tried finding it. I couldn't find it. Maybe if you dig far enough, you could. But I did like Call of Duty commentaries, and
What age is this?
this has to have been like sophomore year high school.
Okay.
How old are you then? Like 12, 13, 14? Something like that.
Something like that.
14 probably.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did it for, I think I got like 1,000 subscribers, something like that. And I think all the time, like, what if I just kept going?
Yep.
But I think I got like spammed with negative comments from, I think it was someone like in my school was
Mhm.
jealous. I remember seeing him one day in the bathroom, and it was intense. And that's all I remember.
What happened?
I don't remember. I just remember it. I remember it happened, and I saw him like the next day in the bathroom, but we didn't say anything because it was like our digital lives, I guess. And I don't know, honestly.
And,
But I deleted it after that.
and you deleted the channel.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I deleted it after that. And that's it. But yeah, I was really into video game stuff when I was younger. So maybe that was it. Yeah, always consumed a lot of content, especially when I was younger.
It's funny. Logan Paul said that he created videos starting when he was like, I don't know, let's say 11, 12, 13. He was seeing a girl for the first time when he was like 13, 14. He showed her the videos and she was like, that's weird. And he deleted 3 years worth of videos. And
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
and it's like, what memories could be there? And he said it's his biggest regret. So it's interesting how it's a similar situation. The negative comments were what pushed you over the edge to delete the channel.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because it was like, like imagine if your podcast just got like, your YouTube comments got like spammed with horrible negativity.
Yeah.
That's what it was. I think it was like 4chan or something.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
something to
wasn't
deal with
motivated
it.
after that.
Something to deal with it today, right? As a 27-year-old man,
Yeah.
right? But it's harder to deal with as 13, 14 when you're building your identity.
Oh yeah, no. You're like clueless then. Like,
and-
that's like the world is like crashing down when that happens,
Yeah, and also there's something to when you're just starting something. I always used to be I didn't want to show people or tell people about things when I was just starting it because I knew that in that stage or in that moment, it was most vulnerable to criticism, most vulnerable to me not putting it out there for the world.
Mm-hmm.
Did you tell people when you started Behavior Hack?
No, I don't think so.
For that reason of knowing that it was vulnerable to stop, or just because you were in your own zone?
I never bragged about it, but if people asked, I would tell them.
Right.
Because I was like always working on it. I was like so obsessed with it when I first started it. Like I remember I was like an EMT at the time, working crazy hours, just like unpaid, but in between calls, because you'd like sit in like the EMT house, whatever. I'd just be like making this content, and there was like, "What are you doing?" And I was just like, "Oh, I'm trying this thing." Yeah, no, I don't think I was ever like too protective over it.
What were you obsessed about it? So why were you so obsessed with it?
So the story is that I brought this up on the first podcast. I was seeing this girl who had like a very small following at the time. I don't know how big she is now, but she had like 10K followers. Still, it's actually pretty big. But anyway, and she was getting these brand deals, whatever. Companies were sending her clothing. I just thought it was so cool. I think that's what pushed me over the edge, because I started when I was like with her, seeing her, and yeah.
But
that's how I started it.
But why were you so obsessed?
I just wanted it to work. I thought it could work. Like I thought I could do it, and I was just like, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna put out so much stuff, and it did eventually.
When you look at the person you are today, how different is it than the person who started that Instagram page?
Insanely different.
In
like,
what ways?
So different. Like there's just so much like information and reflection that has happened. It's almost like a lizard like shedding his skin. Like that person is like gone, mostly still in Binghamton probably. And yeah, I don't feel like that person anymore.
And it's so weird, right? Because especially when you do things, this must be weird for athletes as well, or creators, entrepreneurs who are living off an accomplishment of a previous era of themselves, and people ask them about it and you're like, I don't know, like that's not even me at this point. And I was listening to our first podcast and I was like, that's not me at this point, which is only a year and a half, something like that.
Not that long.
And not that long. And that's a different person.
I know.
It's like we're constantly changing and we're constantly becoming different in some way. And I guess a sign of growth is you don't recognize the person you were a year ago. But it is an interesting thing that we don't recognize or don't even associate with the person we once were when we created the very things that we're doing now.
I know, right? Yeah, but that's who started it, you know? That person had the guts to like freaking get out there and make something, which is hard. That's hard to do it, you know? It is. It's really hard. But that's where it all happens. It all happens because you had the courage to take the risk.
And so when we spoke on our podcast, it was, you were at 150,000 followers, I think you mentioned in that, and now you're at 194,000. But the biggest growth happened from, I think, quarantine, where it was like 30,000 to 150.
Yeah.
And how does it feel now to go from like not as much growth? How does not as much growth feel?
No, yeah, it's look, it's like directly correlated to how much I put out, I think. Like I put out a lot less, I think, in the last year. Like if you look at the amount of content I've written. But and there's you know, yeah, it grows pretty slowly now. But and I guess it's annoying, but it's a sign that I have to do more things and do something new, do something different. And it's honestly almost motivating. Like it's probably good that I'm not just like growing, and maybe this is an excuse, but it's probably good that it's not just growing, because maybe I'd just get stuck only writing on Instagram, and that's, you know, I want to do a lot more than that. And yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. I don't deserve to have more followers right now. Yeah. You know, I've been working really hard on my business, and I think that's okay. I really do.
Yeah.
I have done a lot more on Twitter though, I'll say. And like, it's crazy. Like the reach on Twitter sometimes will be for the same post on Instagram, even though I have whatever, like I think just under like 4,000 followers on Twitter, and you know, like almost 200K on Instagram, but the reach will be like, or the engagement and reach will be very similar on Twitter, which is crazy. Right. But I do think like Twitter followers are, at least for me, like more engaged than Instagram. Yeah.
I think Twitter's more like TikTok in the sense of like any post you put out could reach 1 million people if it's good enough content, where it's much harder for that same post to do the same numbers on Instagram.
Much harder. Yeah. 100%.
Have you spent any time on TikTok?
Just, you know, a little bit. I've done some like reels. I need to do more of it, because, you know, your TikTok content can live everywhere. Like, you know, you're doing it. Like TikTok can be Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. That's what the best people are doing. But yeah, I mean, I like, it hurts my brain when I like consume on it.
Yes.
And like sometimes I think about like the value that's actually being created on the platform in general is like not that much for some people. There's obviously like some amazing stuff there, but from the average person, I think it's just like, it's like, I read this quote from a person from Tesla AI. He's like, TikTok is the first time I feel AI attacking my brain because of how addicting the algorithm is. And it's true, because you'll scroll the, I know if you're listening, you've done it. Like you've scrolled the For You page, and at one point you're like, all right, my brain cannot handle all of this like coming at me.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's really well put.
Well, it's obviously where you need to go to like grow an audience with video. Like just especially like if you want to do it quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my answer.
But TikTok is AI attacking your brain.
It is for profit. That's pretty crazy.
It's wild to think about. And I've also thought about this as like how much you give to these social platforms is often how much you have to take away from your own brain. It feels like sometimes. And that's a scary proposition to navigate through. How do you think about that? If the future TikTok is even harder to do than TikTok it is now, because it's not going to get any easier for the brain, right? Like the virtual reality stuff that's coming is going to be even crazier. I know you spend a lot of time thinking about the future. Is that a sacrifice you're willing to pay? It clearly isn't for TikTok, but
well, I want to put out stuff on TikTok. It's just like I should, like I would make that sacrifice, you know. I'm just not in the moment to be just so like that's
clear.
You should though. I mean,
if it hurts your brain, if it takes away.
Yeah, because it's what I want. Like I want to like have a really, really big audience and like following. And I think you should be, there's barriers, but you should be willing to be everywhere, especially while you're growing. And there's stuff I could do on there. But your question was, is that a sacrifice you're willing to make with like it getting more serious?
Yeah, because it probably get worse, right? For the brain, the AI will get stronger.
Yeah. I like the way, I forgot who someone put this. It might have been Alex Hormozi, who I've been like just so into his stuff lately.
Shout out Hormozi.
Hormozi, man. Like if he's obviously not listening to this, but
he's definitely listening to this. He's definitely seeing this clip.
He might be. Well, he says he doesn't listen to a lot of podcasts, but maybe he'll listen to this one. But he has made me more money personally than like every other business personality combined.
Why has Alex Hormozi made you so much money?
Because he even says he's in the trenches with the stuff he talks about. He's not in the trenches, but his content is for people in the trenches. And like there's very specific things versus you go to a lot of other business creators and it's just like very high level, but he's going to like the stairs and like, here's how you walk up the stairs, and it's helpful.
So what has he done what advice has he given that has directly impacted?
Sure. So I'll give one very specific one. He talks about how if you run a business that relies on paid ads, you can use your customers to pay for your acquisition. And so basically upfront the cost, upfront the initial payment. He has a really good specific formula that I don't remember. I have it written down somewhere. But basically, if you can get your customers to pay more upfront and pay for the ad spend to acquire more customers, it's an amazing flywheel. So I went from like a few years ago, I would charge 25% deposit to reserve a photo booth. Oh, and to preface, my business relies heavily on paid ads. That's like our main acquisition channel. And instead of doing 20% now, like then we did 50% for a while, but now we book a lot of events where I'll give someone a 5% discount to pay in full. So they, 5% off, it's like $50 to $100, but I use that money and it goes right into more ads to get more clients. And that really fuels growth. And that's great. Other things he did is just, he's very good with what I talked about before, which is like what I want to do with my business, which is create this premium brand in a very commoditized market. And that's like what he loves. Like I think he talks about that over and over, and he's helped me with that specifically, and increasing, the amount we charge for our packages and the amount of value we provide. Yeah. Is
that something you would like to reach out to in the future? His acquisition.com?
Maybe.
When you get to the $10 to $30 million a year mark?
If it's right, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
He does work with businesses I think are a little different, but he has some businesses that are very similar to the photo booth. He actually has a photography business, I think, in his portfolio.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard of that as well. And it's interesting how you find these people, right? And I think that is also part of your success, is like finding the people who deserve to come into your brain, that is, and influence you in that way. One of those people was Alex Hormozi, obviously, but like, who are the other people that influence your brain, and how do you decide, other than they have short Instagram bios, to let them?
That is part of it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that's part of it. It is important. Like you've heard like the personal board of directors concept, right?
Yeah.
I think once you actually replied to an email I wrote, because I did it in a newsletter.
Yes.
And I shared mine. You're like, dude, mine is the exact same.
Yeah, that's how I knew we'd get along. Yeah, I know. Is the mentors we had were so similar.
Yeah. But the one thing I've messed up on is like, you should not have too many. And like, I've messed up on that.
Because they're all pulling you in a different direction.
Yeah. And they're all polarizing usually. Like no one is going to be, very few creators and educators are in the middle. You're always one or the other. And see, if you listen, like Naval says this, like if you listen to everyone, it all cancels to zero, because it's just,
if you listen to everyone, it all cancels to zero.
Misquoted, but
that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Of like, it's so important to sometimes just pick one person like Hormozi, and other times it's like going on your own. You talked about the issue of like spending too much time on social media, or you felt like you were learning too much.
Oh, 100%.
How do you stand on that today?
That's been like my biggest like challenge in life, my biggest addiction, is like just wanting to learn every day. And it's honestly the biggest mistake I made like last few years, truthfully, especially while like photo booth was more quiet or more challenging with COVID. Like I was just learning stuff, which, there are definitely good things that came from it. Like I don't regret learning. Like I like the quote, like I think Paul Graham says like the books you read are like food, like they're part of you forever. And, or, you know, you get the idea. But there was things I learned that just, they're not in my brain anymore and they were not useful to what I was doing at the time. And right now, like this year, I've read the least books and consumed less content than I ever have. And it's really great. It's the best thing ever. Like the best thing I've done this year.
Why? Why is that so good?
Because I'm like creating more and like putting out more into the world, mainly with my company. And a lot of that's just the demand. Like people want more photo booths this year because the pandemic's ending. But overall, I think that's something like a theme I'm going to stick with for a while. Is just like compartmentalizing that aspect of my life more. The learning and consuming, when before, like there were times where it was just all I do all day because I could do it forever.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, you relate to that. There's just so much stuff you're curious about.
Yeah. It's a interesting struggle to come across where you love to learn, and I associate with that as well, but you also want to do things and build things.
Like the crypto stuff, like I think you'll relate to this, like is a big example of that. Like I got deep down that rabbit hole, right? And I'm sure that will pay off one day with investments or what in general, but like you got really into NFTs too, right?
Yeah.
And in retrospect, like I have a lot of respect for the person who did not tweet or post or do a single thing with NFTs and just focused on their business, because those people are probably further along with what they're doing than a lot of people who went on this little side quest like I kind of did, and like a lot of people did.
Yeah. It's interesting. I listened to a podcast of you 6 months ago where you were a guest and you spoke about Wolf Game and you spoke about Loot. And it's interesting how some of these projects were like so a part of our minds at a particular moment in time. But today it's like, can't remember the last time I thought about those things.
I know, right? It's crazy.
And it reminded me of David Perel's idea of like the never ending now, of the majority of things that we consume have been created in the past 24 hours.
That's good.
And
really good.
And I was thinking, well, is that really an issue? Because it's always been that way. If you were to have a conversation with somebody 500 years ago, the things that they were saying were created in the conversation was created in the past 24 hours. Mm-hmm. It was created in that moment. But I think his point is that if you elongate that time, you gain wisdom, because the Lindy effect, there's more knowledge to be gained from something published 500 years ago that's stuck around today than something published 5 years ago, which I think is an interesting point.
100%. I love that idea. The never ending now. It's true.
Yeah. And so how has being a little more removed from the content cycle improved your own psyche?
It's it's improved my psyche for sure. The NFT thing was so crazy. And like I talked to a lot of people who even like they work in NFT companies, and they say how like damaging it was to them like mentally. Yeah. Just because it's like a financial thing. Like you invest in these things and then it's all over social media, and it's like it's eating you alive.
Sorry for introducing you to that.
Oh, you did? I know, right? No, I don't regret it. Like I think it's a very good thing that it happened. It'll make sense later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a lot of people who just like are like I can't do this anymore. Like I think Jack Butcher even said, like, honestly, I listened to him say this too. Like, and he did really well with NFTs. This is someone who like he was buying Bored Apes like right when they came out, or very close to like a month after. And he, I think, said like this year he's like, to step back, I'm not. And that could be, I think he said it was probably because of the market, but also just because of how much mental space it takes up.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely. It's been great to remove myself from a lot of that noise. And it's been, really nice to just relax with it.
Yeah, you were totally into it.
Yeah.
You were working at an NFT company for a little bit.
Yeah.
And now I feel like, I don't know, I think you've grown a lot this year. And like you've done these in-person interviews so well. And yeah, I could totally see it with you.
Yeah, I mean, imagine what you were doing, which was basically following it, which was a full-time job in and of itself. But imagine me reporting on it 3 times a week. Is like, it got even more crazy for me as somebody who did it for 3 months.
Yeah, and can't imagine that.
But it's like you said, I think it'll make sense further down the line.
Yeah.
And I think it's the closest experience we have to a .com bubble or something like that, where it'll make sense that we know how to create a domain name 5 years from now versus today.
I'm with you.
So I got some quotes here from you that I'd love to talk about.
Let's do it.
Obviously, you're a beast with the quotes and the writing. So this is one that popped out, very recent. Life is about imposing friction to eventually reduce it. Get rich, then stay rich. Work hard and sacrifice short term, then work smart and de-risk long term. Get jacked, then stay jacked. Train intensely, then consistently. Get heartbroken, then find the one. Thought that was an interesting quote. What strikes you about that?
I was inspired by, I wrote that right after I listened to Hormozi again, name dropping Hormozi. He talked about how he was passively jacked. And I really liked that. And how he put in that effort early on to, like, train every day, dial in his diet. And now he just like lifts once a week, or if that, and doesn't go that hard, but he's just jacked. And that inspired that. And I think it's really true. It applies to like almost everything. And people just don't want to go through that initial friction. Yeah, whether it's lifting or business, or whether it's being in the gym every single day 2 hours, whether it's driving 8 hours to do a photo booth event and make a few $100, or like go on 20 horrible dates. People don't want to do that stuff. It's horrible, but that's how you get to the good place. And then the good place feels so much better. Like right now, I genuinely, like, my dream day right now, or not dream day, but when I can just like sit and like work on my laptop, I love it, because for a really long time, all I did was like drive to these photo booth events, and I was working myself. Like, I did hundreds of events when I was younger. And so literally just like sitting on a laptop to me and working is like such a joy.
Because you put in the work.
Yeah, I put in the work.
To understand how meaningful it is.
Yeah, it's like better. It feels better.
Yeah.
Compared to if that was just my default. And see, that's another side to it. Like, it's not only like less friction, but it's like better. It feels better.
Yeah. What also struck me about this quote is that you start somewhere, build it up, and eventually it goes away. And what I mean by that is like, get rich, then stay rich, but eventually you're going to die and the riches are going. You get heartbroken, then you find the one, then you either break up or one of you dies. And that's just like the reality of life. It's like start, build into something amazing, and then like eventually give it all away, or let it go, or release it in some way. And I was waiting for that to be a part of the quote.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like,
what would you have said?
What's up?
What would you have said like at the end?
Well, I think it's like we move in cycles.
Yeah.
Always. And we're in this cycle right now where we're young and we're trying to get after it, and we're trying to get the thing and build the thing, but eventually the thing is going to go. And that's maybe more of a pessimistic view of it, but it's just like a more realistic view of it, I think, as well.
No, it's true. That's like, one of the guiding philosophies of my life.
Is
nothing really matters.
Nothing really matters.
And that has helped me with so many things. And whenever I really get struggle, like, I come back to that. Whenever I was like, when I was younger, like really stressed with business stuff, photo booth stuff, you're at an event and like something's broken. It's just like, well, there's two things I think of. One is like, I'm going to be asleep tonight in my bed, no matter what. I'll like be in that moment, and that helps a lot. But another one is just like, I'm going to be dead, and like, none of this will matter. None of these people will exist. And like, it's very, very dark, but it helps you get through things, I think.
Yeah.
And it helps you realize how little things matter. And so like go create something that, matters to you.
Yeah. Nothing matters. So take it as a good thing, because you can experiment and you can go crazy and you can make a mistake and it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
And you also had this quote from Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I was going to end the podcast with, but I mean, it's the perfect time to talk about it.
Yeah.
Which is, for most of our history, we knew the earth was the center of the universe. We killed and tortured people for saying otherwise. That is, until we discovered the earth is actually revolving around the sun, which is just one sun out of trillions of suns. And now look at us, trying to deal with the fact that all of that exists inside one universe out of who knows how many. Every new discovery is just a reminder we're all small and stupid.
Yeah, that's a good quote. I had he's reading it in the background is I'll describe it, is so this movie, Everything, have you seen it?
No, I wanted to see it just based on this quote.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. I would see it just for that like one scene, honestly, just because like basically, I'm not even gonna describe the movie because it's so hard to explain. But the scene is these two rocks in this big vista, and it was my Twitter header for a while because the scene really stuck with me in the movie, and it was just basically the scene, these two rocks, and it's just like a blip in the movie of one multiverse in this movie. The movie's about the multiverse, right? All these different universes. And so it's one multiverse where this mom and her kid are literally just two rocks. And I forget what they said. And I love the quote you said. I only heard that quote. I only thought about that quote like after the movie. I actually like forgot about that during. It was just like the picture I loved of the scene. The quote is great as well. But just like in the movie, they're sitting there. And it goes there right from a scene where they're like fighting with like ninjas and like all this crazy shit. And then they're just like there. And they're like, this is nice. And she's like, yeah, this is nice. And I don't know, that's all life is. It's just like those moments where like those moments are the best. Like it's just two rocks sitting there next to each other, but two people together. And I don't know, the scene really stuck with me. It's hard to explain why.
Well, the quote stuck with me because it's like, it's perspective, right? It's like zooming out.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
you have something about zooming out or zooming in, right? A quote or an idea. It's
maybe.
like,
no, yeah, the quote's different than what I was talking about. And the quote is nice. It's like how, the world is so big and so insane and so unpredictable. And in the end, nothing we do really matters.
how do you think about that when you're trying to achieve goals and you're trying to make your mark on this, and like to know that it all inevitably doesn't matter? I think Hormozi has a great point of just like, you're thinking about your great great grandfather, like what's his name?
Mm-hmm.
Like
even
I don't
shorter
know.
than that. I honestly don't even remember one of my grandpa's names, which is kind of fucked up, but like he was never
No, I
alive.
mean-
So I never met him. So yeah, like literally
Like
there's no legacy. Like I've been on board with that for like a long time. There's no legacy like that. Like think about like there are huge celebrities like who just died, and then you'll remember them for a day, and if you're a super fan, you'll remember them for whatever, a year, a few years, but they're gone and that's it.
and
I think it helps you take bigger swings when you really like internalize how crazy this all is, how like insane reality is. I thought of this the other day. It's like, this is gonna be a good little soundbite. Like the closer you feel to death, the clearer your potential becomes. And it's like, because the more you realize that like you're gonna die, none of this really matters in the end. It's like, I should really go do this thing.
because like why not?
Yeah. And sometimes you have to remind yourself because you get so caught up in the script that you're playing in life and the role
What's the
you're playing.
script you're playing right now?
Photo booth owner.
Photo booth owner,
Photo
Zach
booth company
Pogrob.
owner. Mainly, that's what I mostly play because and I wasn't supposed to. Like I wasn't my plan for this time because I was gonna keep the business like where it was. But now I have this very specific way I want to build it, where I was telling you, expanding, and I want to go do that. But it's easy to just live on that script because there's a lot to do. But you have to get out of that script because I want to do much bigger things.
Like what?
There's a lot. I want to build that little Instagram following I have, which is like, I think pretty loyal. Like you can look at comments. I get such great comments and like people DMing me all the time. And I got a DM yesterday that was like, I mean, you get DMs too, I'm sure once, like often it's like people say how a specific thing you put out, or they read something of yours that completely changed their life and they're in a completely new state and they mean it. That's crazy. Like I want to do that for more people really badly. And what I really want to get to personally is I really like these people who have built businesses and lives all around their obsessions. Like I'm almost like, there's a new term I'm trying to come up with, like OBI, obsession-based income,
Oh,
where
that's sick.
where you're just naturally waking up and following your obsessions, and there's no difference between that and like yeah, you have to do stuff you don't want to do, but like almost everything you're doing is directly correlated to the things you love, and you're waking up and just flows.
You would do it naturally. You would
do it naturally
without the income.
You would do it without the income, yeah. And so there's people like Jocko, I think, is the best example of this, where he has built this like people I don't think realize like his business acumen and the way he's running his companies. And it's just amazing to me. Like he has this unbelievable leadership agency, which is obviously something he's so passionate about, is leading from when he was in the military. He has American-made manufacturing company that make amazing products, Origin. He has his Jocko energy drink. He has his books. He has a publishing company for books, so he helps other people launch books. He does retreats. I was telling you about this in-person retreat. There's a lot there. But I think those are all things he would just wake up and do. You know what I mean? And like he enjoys doing. And yeah, I like people who have done that. And that's what I want to do.
And that's one thing you're also so good at, is studying the people who you want to be like in the future. You have documents and documents on Christian Guzman, Gary Vee.
Yeah.
Like, you've shown me this before. And I think you should start publishing them.
Probably.
Because one of them is going to see that and be like, yo, you did this. Like you basically studied my life. That's pretty cool. I learned something about myself just from the reports you created.
Yeah. It's like behind every like creator and entrepreneur you look up to is like a ton of branding, a ton of different colors, typography, email funnels, pricing techniques, products. Like there's, and I'm not saying that's what matters, but there's these intricate little things that you can study. And like Gary Vee says this, it's like, watch what they do, not what they say. What they say is just one piece of what they are doing. But like most people are just in like the wheel of like listening to what they say, because that's what they're saying. That's what they're putting out. But instead, like watch how they're running their companies, because that's what they are. They're like personal media companies. I think that's someone else came up with that term. But yeah.
Most people don't want to be that someday, or don't think of themselves as potentially getting to that place, so they don't bother studying it or aren't interested in it, which makes sense for the vast majority of people. But you say, oh, like that's somebody I'd like to be in 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah, I messed up trying to do it too soon, I think. Like,
yeah, and also I was thinking like sometimes you have a top-down approach, which stops you from building. Because if it was bottom up, you would just create and do and lead to one thing to the next. But because you're such a good planner, and it leads you to try to create the plan of where you'll be without doing the steps sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
No, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And
I can see that.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. Just like you are great at the top down. But if you do bottom up, you just go to your interests go, and then eventually, it's not like Jocko sat there and was like, you know what I'm going to do after the military? I'm going to create this, and this. And it was like one thing led to another.
Yeah. No, it's true. Like the people, like it's tough. Like the icons that people you study usually didn't spend a lot of their time studying icons. They just became icons. I think some of them did.
Some of them did. And that's where it's tricky, because some of them had favorite YouTubers growing up, and some of them had people they followed.
But I think the difference is that they studied more of the craft than the person.
The craft of the person they wanted to be.
Yeah. Like, and that's what I've been thinking about a lot. It's like, you hear a lot, some people say, what could you be the best of the world at? Right? But here's another way to look at it. It's like, what I've been thinking about is like, what can you obsess at more than anyone else in the world? And like, they're different things. One is like being this thing, and the other is doing this thing. So like examples, like Arnold literally was, I think at the time, the most obsessed person in the world with bodybuilding when he was coming up. He was living in this village. You should read, if you're listening, you should read this book. I have not personally read all of his new book, Total Recall. I'm sure it's very good, but he has an older book called The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. The first part of it is not about bodybuilding. It's just all about his pure obsession with bodybuilding and weightlifting. And in the beginning, he talks about how he grew up in this house with no heat, and he would do weights in the basement or garage. He would walk 6 miles to the gym, and he would just sit in his room studying magazines and videos of Frank Zane, I think his name was. And he would look at the specific angles of how he moved his arm in his posing routines. And like, I can pretty much say at that point in time, which was like, I don't know what year that was, but 30, 40, 50 years ago, he was probably the most obsessive person with bodybuilding in the world. And you look at like Mr. Beast, like 10 years ago, and I think I can pretty much say that he was probably the most obsessed person with YouTube in the world, if not top 5.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's almost like separate like the person you're becoming from like just the activity that you fully love obsessing over, because that's what these people did.
Did you see Mr. Beast calling?
Yeah, I saw that.
So Mr. Beast found this podcast last night while we're recording this. Found this podcast called How to Take Over the World. And Ben Wilson is the creator of that. He's actually also the producer of the My First Million podcast.
Awesome podcast, by the way.
Yeah. And
both
podcasts.
Yeah, the How to Take Over
awesome.
the World is really good.
And so Mr. Beast finds How to Take Over the World podcast and follows the dude, Ben, who eventually they go on a 2-hour plus phone call together. And imagine like just creating a podcast and then putting it out for years at a time. I think it started 5 years ago, something like that.
Not sure.
And Mr. Beast just calls him out of the blue and they have a 2-hour phone call. Like now maybe his obsession is taking over the world, right? And maybe it was in the beginning because he believes that YouTube is the world.
He wants to take over the world, but like help the world.
Yeah, to help the world.
Yeah.
Sure. But
I would bet on Mr. Beast too for someone to do that.
Yeah, he's incredibly talented at that. So, but like going back to you, why obsession? Why has that been the word that you've chosen to brand your life around?
Yeah, it definitely has been. And like it's very like purposeful. I talk about like every post now, I feel like. Just because like when I don't know what to talk about, I'll just like kind of come back to that. I think it is important. Well, first like to make yourself known for something, or an idea. Like I think the best creators, I might have talked about this before, but the best creators like send you on a mission, right? Like Anthony Pompliano's mission is basically like buy Bitcoin, be financially free, right?
Ryan Trahan was a mission of like, let's travel across the
100%.
country in a penny.
Yeah, that's 100%. But even more so, like I'm talking about like, yeah, that was by the way amazing. Ryan Trahan's penny series, but also just like, okay, like another example, like Jocko, his mission is like follow discipline, right?
Follow discipline, yeah.
There are a lot of examples. Like you could look at Jack Butcher. His mission is one of his, I would say, is build once, sell twice.
Definitely.
Communicate, use the internet, plug into the network of the internet. And I think when you can like give people a mission, it's really powerful. And that mission could just be an idea, to like follow an idea. So when I talk about obsession, I really do talk about it more of like a adjective than like a noun. Like not necessarily one thing, but having what you're doing in the moment be the only thing. And so what I mean is like, I think you can have multiple obsessions over your life. Like, I think that's cool to do multiple things, right? People will tell you a lot. Some people say, do all these things, do everything, have 10 businesses. Other people will say, do one thing really well. And I'm like on board with both. And I think you can apply obsession to both as like the adjective, like what you're doing in the moment, allow yourself to be consumed by it completely. Like imagine it to allow it to like wrap around your entire being without giving into like the pressures of society to be more normal. And it's something I struggle with because I do have that like in me, and it's hard because like I have a girlfriend, I have a normal life, and they like pull at each other sometimes. And I think a lot of people relate to that, where you have this person in you who wants to stay in the gym like 3 hours and just freaking torture your body, and you want to stay up all night and lose sleep and write this thing, but you have this thing tomorrow, or you have plans with family that you have to go to, but you really want to just like keep working on this ad or this website. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm really talking about when I talk about obsession, which is allowing yourself to not like ruin the rest of your life, but allowing yourself to be imbalanced in certain ways without hurting the people you love. But like don't hurt the people you love, but allow yourself to be imbalanced. And I think that's when you get like the outsized returns.
Allow yourself to be imbalanced.
Yeah.
I love it, because so much of what we've almost been raised with is like 50-50.
Yeah.
Spend 50% work, 50% on your life, right?
Balance.
But it's like, in reality, the people who have achieved the most have done 100-0 for some portion. And,
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you think about those two people almost, the normal person, the obsessed person, and living out life as both of them?
Yeah, I think of it like I have a post about this. I think it's pinned on my Instagram. It's one of my favorite things I've written about. And it's like, the idea actually comes from the sort of core idea sort of comes from Robert Greene. It talks about the voice. And I think everyone has this voice in them that like is like telling you who you're capable of being, right? And like most of success is just listening to that voice. But the problem is that the world is like always trying to quiet the voice. And this voice is the most delusionally optimistic like person, like this is the voice like for you that like says you can record and like interviews in the biggest stadiums in the world, go on world tours, sell out. This is the voice that has you being number one podcast in the world. This is this is that voice. And everyone has it, but the problem is not everyone is listening to it. And I think if you settle too much in life, if you don't allow yourself to be like work-life imbalanced, that voice can go away like forever. And that's when that's like the scary thing to me. That's what I'm most terrified of, is like that voice going away. And you'll know, if to give it a more like a better example is like, when you're lifting and you're just having the best lift, best lighting, you look amazing, you adrenaline rushing through you, and you just feel so good, and you're having all these ideas, and you're going and you're writing your notes like what you want to do and you're capable of, and like your plan. That's that voice, but it's not always there.
I've noticed the voice getting stronger and duller and stronger and duller, and just like it's a pull.
It's normal for it to go up and down.
Like what do you do? What do you do when you're pulled in a direction where the voice, you're not listening to the voice?
Yeah. I personally struggle with this. So
Me too.
I will tell you, like I have things I do. I have notes. I think I keep like a pathological amount of notes. I think every successful person does though. Not that like I'm not successful, but I'm just saying like I have notes that I come back to of where I want to be, the person I want to do, what I want to do. I have books I'll come back to and read, and like passages of that helps me too, like to stay centered. There are tricks, like working out is usually one, like just putting your phone away, going and lifting will bring the voice back pretty clear. Usually it's when you're doing the work the right way, the voice is there.
Just thinking that It always is when doing the thing that the voice is strongest.
Yeah, and so the danger comes when, the thing is not going the best, or you're not doing the right things. And you really have, that's all life is. Most people that you surround yourself with do not have that voice anymore. You have when you're a kid, when like you want to do everything, but it just gets suppressed. And most people are walking around where that voice is like, it's basically dead. I think it can always be there maybe, but like it's not coming back. You know what I mean? But the people that you and I surround ourselves with, they have that voice. And some people it's screaming in their head constantly because they're just out there doing so much. But other people that are still building, it's, it wanes.
It wanes for me too, man. and sometimes I don't know what to do about it. Freaks me out, honestly. But
I think, do you agree though? Do you relate to the voice?
1000%. I'm out here struggling right now, figuring out how am I going to put this podcast and build it into my head what I know it's capable of becoming, when I'm also struggling to figure out how the money's coming in, to figure out everything. And I'm like, what's more important, making a living and then I see this quote from you, making a living is a slow death. And I'm like, how do I really have and build out my obsession to fit the income?
Yeah.
And I think it's just every artist goes through this point, I'm sure. And
I think so. And
that's been really helpful for me, is comparing the journey to other artists, even though a podcaster isn't an artist by
it is though.
common standards. But
no, yeah. Everyone's gone through it. You saw like the Kanye documentary.
Of course.
Popular. It's so good. You saw like the day one footage. It's crazy.
And it was also helpful to understand him as not just Kanye that we know. Like he was a producer. He was a great producer, but he didn't want to be a producer. And he was a producer in other people's eyes. And it's like, okay, like if it took him that long to figure it out and put his own image of what he was in other people's heads, because at the end of the day, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Like he's got the voice, and that voice is strong.
I was going to say that he's had that voice like an insane amount since day one. And it really hasn't shut off very much.
Yeah. But I wonder, I would love to talk to him about the closest that voice has ever been to turning off. Or were there any moments when it was like he was just holding on by a thread?
Yeah. I'm sure there were. You probably didn't see them, or maybe there wasn't. And that's why he's reached the level of success he has, Yeah. But look, everyone's had them. And Mr. Beast talks about it too. I don't remember specific examples, but he did videos for a long time. But he always had the voice very loud to keep going,
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot. And if you want to check out that book, it's from Laws of Human Nature. I don't remember the section, but he talks about a story with Martin Luther King, and I wish I remembered it better. But you can read all about this, the voice concept. That's kind of where like I first heard it, and you hear it a lot of places, but it stuck with me really well. How Martin Luther King had this this voice to go do these things, which were obviously very difficult at that time.
Yeah, it's like often the struggles that we're putting up with are a lot less than the things that other people in the past had to deal with. And if you can use that,
Yeah.
like I should go back and study Jackie Robinson, right? Like what'd he have to go through and what was the voice in his head telling him? Because the pressures were greater. So if you could look at somebody whose pressures were 1000% greater than yours, then, and how they stuck through it and what they used to stick through it, that could also be a valuable resource.
Yeah, like he was, they were like coming after his family, Martin Luther King. I remember that from now that you said that. They were like, all these people were threatening his family, and like the sane voice was like to retreat, whatever. Like the sane voice was like to retreat and go back, but he like kept the voice he needed and did what he did, obviously.
Yeah, man.
Want your gift?
I would love my gift.
Because it kind of relates to what we were just talking about. Here you go. This was tough to find, something like related to this. It's, by the way, it's nothing, but you can open it now.
It's something.
Yeah.
It quite literally is something.
It relates to what we're talking about, so.
Wow. You're a legend. So this is a Madison Square Garden shot glass for those who are just listening. And that is because I've publicly stated that my number one goal with this podcast is to record a live session at Madison Square Garden in front of a sold out arena. And yes,
I tried to get you like a little figurine, like one of those little things, but they didn't have them. So
I know what you're talking about, but yeah, that is one where we'll have to take a shot out of sometime in the next 10, 20.
Exactly, man.
You know,
night of.
It's weird, man.
That can be a little thing. Whenever you need help with the voice, look at the little shot glass.
I love that. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
Back to you. The more you're stressed by a decision, the more deciding it will change your life.
Sure. It's like
I know it's true.
I'm like agreeing with everything I'm saying.
Where'd that come from?
It's true though. It's like, yeah, there are a few decisions that they're just eating you alive, I think. And
what are the decisions that are eating you alive right now?
Well, yeah, like what was the exact quote? It was the more stressed you are by a decision, the more freedom's on the other side. Something like that.
The more you're stressed by a decision, the more deciding will change your life.
Yeah. It's like the degree of stress correlates to how much freedom, I think. I think originally I had wrote freedom. The degree of stress correlates to the amount of freedom you feel on the other side. And it's true. Like it relates to something else I've been thinking about, which was like something I've been struggling with is where I want to live. Right. I've been living in the city for about 6 to 8 months with my girlfriend, originally without her. But it's been great. But I've been kind of stuck between the city on Long Island, which is where I'm from. And then lately I'm trying this new third thing, which is like when you're stuck, I tweeted this too once, but when you're stuck between two decisions and you really can't decide and it's really stressing you out, just say no to both and think of a third one that's way more exciting and go do that. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. Like I'm like, screw that. I really am not excited by either of these. I'm going to go travel for a bit and, stay because I've never really done that. And that really excites me, and, step away from my business more. And that excites me a lot. But yeah, like that's one decision. That was the big one that was bothering me for a while, and now I've kind of decided. But it's true. It's true. Like people get distracted, and then they let decisions that can be made in an instant take up like years. I'm sure you know people like that. And it's crazy how simple it looks from the outside. Like, just do this. It's one thing. But instead you get caught in that script. You get caught living your normal life, and then years become decades, and then that's your life.
So where are you living?
Right now?
What's the decision to live?
I want to travel for a while. I want to do like the nomad thing, like
Yeah.
a few months here, a few months here, because I finally can with my business where I'm not really location dependent anymore. And I've never had that freedom really ever. So I think I should take it while I still want to see some places,
Deciding where to live is one of the most underrated but important decisions we all make, especially today when you can stay in contact with loved ones and be in a different place a lot of times via FaceTime, which wasn't as accessible to previous generations.
Yeah, and with work too. Like a lot of jobs now you can do basically anywhere.
Exactly. So
yeah, some people, I think in the past you really didn't deal with that as much.
yeah.
You know, you were kind of where you were. Like people would come to the city and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
But now there's a lot of options.
And so what are some things people should think about to decide where to live?
I'm honestly not the best person to ask about this because
Me
I've
neither.
struggled with it.
Me neither.
So like,
but
I don't think I should be answering it. But I like you've talked about this, the Paul Graham thing, the whisper of cities, right?
Yeah.
It's so good how like cities whisper to you certain things. Like New York whispers you to be rich, and Boston whispers to you to be intelligent. LA to be famous. Like I love that. And so I think you should go where your intentions are. You know, Austin, I think, like Texas, big place now. It's like be healthy, have adventures, meet, you know, surround yourself with people. I would say Miami is like a city of the future. And I think you have to think strongly about how you're going to spend each day versus like what it's going to be like to live somewhere, because they're like two different things, I think. Like you have this vision of living somewhere amazing, like the city, let's say you want to move to the city, and it's like, oh, I'm going to live in the city, I'm going to go to all these things and meet all these people, and I just don't think that's what it really is like. Like most of the time you're just sitting wherever you're working, whether that's your apartment or an office or a co-working place, and that's most of your time. Like, you know what I mean?
it describes social media as well. The image of what you think it'll be like isn't always what it actually is like when you're doing the thing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Especially if you're like a work-oriented person. Like that's going to be most of your time working, you know? And so like for me, like truthfully, all I want to do is like work on stuff.
Why? What are you trying to avoid? Or
I'm not trying to avoid anything.
Because a lot of times people use work as a way to avoid things or avoid their mind. I wonder about this Hormozi with like, he loves to work, work's his obsession. I wonder like, what are you trying to avoid? Like, you know, sometimes we do things as a result to not just sit still and do nothing, which is not to say that that's what we should be doing, but sometimes it's because we are unable to do that.
I really don't think I'm avoiding anything. Like I have a term, but I'll relate to what you're saying. Like I have a term called painful vacations.
Painful vacations.
And I've gone on a lot of these this year where I do not want to be on vacation, but I am. And like, it's because I have a life, and I have family, and I have a girlfriend. But like I have a place I want to go, and it takes work. It takes hours behind a laptop, and that's truthfully what it takes. And sometimes like I don't enjoy going out to dinners to just like catch up with friends, where it's not like when I'm not in a place where I'm completely exhausted and completely proud of where I'm at. Does that make sense?
Sometimes. I mean, it does make sense.
They can be the right friends. Like you, I would go out with anytime and like talk.
What makes a difference between me versus somebody else?
Because we're always talking about the future and where we're going versus other people. They don't have, to relate back to the voice. They don't have a voice anymore. That's like taking
their voice
somewhere.
Is dead.
The voice is dead. And like, so those relationships you need them, obviously. You need like, well, you don't need anything, but like you're going to have them in life, and you're going to have people in your life and family and a girlfriend, but like you have to set barriers, and I've struggled with that sometimes. You know, it's hard. You have to, you know, when you're people in your life. But it's something I struggle with a lot, is that barrier. And so like I don't think I'm avoiding anything by working. I want to work right now because I'm not where I want to be yet, and I guess I never will be. But yeah, it's something I struggle with, I guess.
Yeah, but you're also enjoying the work and enjoying the process of building what you're doing.
Yeah, like I never. Yeah, like I said, painful vacations. The idea of that is like you're on vacation. It's this amazing place, and like I've gone to a bunch of these, but I don't want to be there. I want to be like by my laptop working. That's it.
Yeah.
And like so, like you're on vacation, you're by the beach. It's amazing food, amazing nights out, but it's like, oh, this is painful. Like I don't want to be here. I'm like itching. And I'm sure like you relate to that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like that's how I feel most of the time. I'm out doing stuff, and it's dangerous because those times the voice gets very quiet.
Yeah.
And
life's good. You don't need to work. You don't need to build
Life's
anything.
Good. So like a good example of this, my girlfriend her family lives in this unbelievable house on North Shore, Long Island. And when I'm there on the weekends, like It's the most amazing place. They have like a private beach. It's just insane. But most of the time I'm there, like often I'm just like sitting there on my laptop, and it's because like I don't want to just enjoy this. Like I want to own this, you know? Like that is the difference.
This is a thing I've been thinking about, is that we should be really skeptical of enjoying or doing or being in experiences that we didn't earn ourselves. And it's an interesting thing. If you find yourself in the position where you're doing something where you didn't put every brick in to experience that yourself, like that's a vulnerable place to be, because in the back of your mind, your voice is going to say, well, you could be the one who created this experience in some respect.
It's true. It's dangerous.
Yeah, man. Any other topics interest you to talk about or to explore?
Anything you want. We can talk about what's going on with you. You can talk about anything. It's your birthday.
Yeah, man. I'm just struggling right now in this place of figuring out the voice, dimming my own voice versus using it versus not. And it's a really interesting time to podcast, because whenever you have a birthday, you always reflect, right?
Always.
About
27 is a weird age too, man. It's like you're so in the middle of things.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. So just a time of reflection, a time of asking questions.
How would you rate the voice right now? Like on a scale, like, cause we talked like a few months back, like earlier, I think later last year.
Yeah.
Like 6 months ago, 8 months ago. I feel like the voice was like kind of low. Like you were unsure about the NFT stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how would you rate the voice right now? If that was like I don't know, like a 2, maybe. What is it now out of 10?
I would say now it's like a 5 or 6.
But it's been higher, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, doing this makes it higher, you know, but
Yeah.
it's like you see it going somewhere, but it's not where you want to be. If you would have told me this is the place I'd be 2 years ago when I started, I'd be like, really? That's it? You know?
You thought it'd be more?
Thought it'd be further along. So then you start asking, am I on the right journey? Am I on the right mountain? And yeah, just trying to figure that out at this moment.
Yeah, there's a quote I really like. It's like, I'm gonna misquote it, but I've been misquoting a lot today. I'm usually like good with quotes, but it's like obsession is the combination of creativity and distance. And it's like, or success, something like that. But basically, like you need to do it for a really long time, but keep being creative and working on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like for you, it's like in the beginning, it grows so much because it's new. It went from 0 to 1, you know, like there's nothing there, and now there's something.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're feeling that dip of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like in the beginning, it probably felt insane, right? Year 1 probably felt amazing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, holy shit, I didn't have this a year ago, but now I have this amazing audience. I have people DMing me. I'm interviewing these icons, interviewing Gary Vee, like all these people. You've had just a ton of guests on his level and more. And it's hard. And I think like I struggle with it too. Like we were talking about, like my Instagram does not grow as much as it used to. But a lot of it's, I think, the reason I would bet on you is because I don't think you'll ever stop. And I think I'm the same. Like even though I don't post as much, I'm still posting. I'm still there. You know what I mean? Like I've taken like one break before, but like I'm still posting multiple times a week. I won't stop. And I also won't stop realizing that you have to not just do the work, but you have to work on the work. And you're definitely doing that. Like, look at what you've been doing. You've been doing these amazing in-person interviews, you know, spending all your time and money to do them. And, you know, that's different. Most people aren't doing that.
Yeah. It's, we'll see where it ends up, you know, because I feel like everything we do leads to something in the future, which we couldn't possibly predict or see where it'll go.
Yeah.
Even if you have that vision, it's like the twists and turns along the way are hard to find sometimes and are hard to navigate through. Am I doing the right thing? Is this really what I'm here to do?
But your vision hasn't changed very much, has it?
Yeah, it hasn't changed, but it's something I'm trying to figure out, you know? But I think it'll be cool to look back regardless of where it all ends up in 10 years, seeing that this was my real mindset of this moment. And that's also another thing is like content is just snapshots of where our mind was at this particular point in time.
That's true. That's what I was looking forward to today, because I was thinking about like 10 years from now, looking back at it.
Yeah.
That's part of why I was looking forward to it.
It's like that was you at this moment. And even though that's not you at all in the future moment, that is what helped build the future you or get you to that moment.
Yeah.
Is having those beliefs and that mindset and the way you spoke and the way you thought about things. That was you at that time.
It's valuable to capture that. I wish I captured more of it. Like it really is cool to look back and see who you were.
Yeah. And do you ever think about the downsides of that?
What, like capturing?
Yeah, capturing and putting out for the entire world to see.
No, I think more people should do it. I think you have to almost have a mentality that's it's weird not to do it. You have to like, and this is not something that a lot of people do, but you have to think like when you're living your life. And look, I don't put out a lot of stuff. I'm not going to act like I do. I put out a few posts, several posts a week, I'll say, or like several tweets a day, whatever. Sometimes a day. I meant a week. But like the way I look at it is like, I know I could produce like 100x more, but I think there's like two types of people almost. It's like people who are not living on the internet and people who are. And like we've talked about this. We've had like very like high level discussions on this, but it's almost like I've had this like little phrase. It's like content is like compounding social capital, right? But it's like you're living your life, but you're also living this other life where you have this exponentially growing, it should grow exponentially over time, exponentially growing network. People who know and understand your life and things you're doing. It's almost like you're living in all those people's heads, versus just a person who's living their life offline and you're just one person living in a few heads around you offline almost, basically. It's like living without the internet. Like how do you live without the internet? You can't. And so like
that's what's going to keep pulling us back no matter what.
That idea is like so
powerful.
It's very powerful in me. And like, that's what keeps me doing stuff. And like, I won't stop doing it. I 100% won't. But it is hard sometimes when your voice, we've gone back to the voice a lot. It's like I the way I make content, at least right now, is very authentic. It's like I have a thought and it's real and I share it and that's it. And sometimes I'm busy and I don't have that many thoughts like that, or I'm not in the right mindset. And the last 2 years, there's been a lot of times where I wasn't in the right mindset at all. And I'm not just going to pump out content. I just don't think that's the right way to do things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really think that's a good mentality to have. Like, it's normal to do this. It's normal to live online and share yourself online every day. It's weird not to.
Yeah.
It's weird that people aren't taking advantage of this.
Yeah.
Because it's out there and it's free. And like, even if you do it at a super small scale, a few thousand followers can change your life. It's like, here's a crazy way to look at it, but I think it's true. Every word you've ever said online, tweet and podcast conversation, every word Danny Miranda said is like a node on this network. And all these people can attach to this network with new opportunities and new connections. And someone's listening to this right now with one probably. And
if you chop up clips too of a longer form thing, if you chop up
so many
parts of a long essay into tweets, then those become their own nodes that people can send and connect with 50 years in the future.
That's partially inspired by Jack Butcher, who definitely tweeted something last night. Like, I want to give him credit. He's like, I forgot what he tweeted, but he's like, make a network or join a network, something like that.
Make a network or join a network.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But the idea of just like each people, you are literally this, you have created this network all around your ideas, and that doesn't exist for someone who doesn't have it.
Yeah.
That's why I love podcasting so much, because you're doing these in-person connections, more than just someone who's creating content. It's really cool. And I think when you look back like several years from now, it'll be insane to look at what you've done.
Thank you, man. I mean, it's all just nodes on the network of human beings, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really, what it really is connecting with human beings. And I think that, and sharing it with the world, I think is just something that I'm really grateful to have done, whether it leads to Madison Square Garden or not, is like I connected with 250 human beings on a deep level over the past 2 years. So
it's true, but it can. That's the exciting thing.
Exactly.
It can, and I think it will if you keep that voice alive, in your head, and you keep on the right path. I truly think it will.
And that's the key.
You know why? Because you know, this isn't just me. Like you have a lot of people say this about you, you know, who like see that in you and tweet about it and shout you out after interviews, and they don't do that often. I mean, that's all life is, like relationships with other people. Really, what is life without that? And that's what you're doing. You're like forming these relationships at scale, like for the public to see, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's really special.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate you, and I appreciate our friendship. And I think that, you know, the journey is so much less valuable if you don't experience it with people who can understand the bits and pieces of it with you. And I'm really grateful for your friendship and you as a person, for everything you've done for me for over the past year and a half.
You've done a lot for me too, man. You really have. Seriously. It's been fun being on this journey together, because we kind of started at similar times, or maybe me a little before you, but yeah, it's been good.
It's been a great journey, and I have no doubt that it'll be interesting to watch the future unfold for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now we have another node in the network of our relationship and friendship, and I'm looking forward to revisiting it in 10 years and cringing with you. And
we'll definitely cringe. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think I covered everything I want. Oh, also your weirdest habit, you watching Stranger Things on 2x speed.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
Yeah, what's good with that?
Yeah, so like I love Stranger Things. Like I think it's a really good show. A lot of people love it. But when the new season came out, I had a lot of shit to do, and I was just like, I want to know what happens, and I was just watching it like on 2x speed, like while I was doing something else, which is really weird because you should just like sit and enjoy it.
Just for Stranger Things or for everything?
Other things too. I listen to like podcasts on high speed too sometimes. Sometimes not. Sometimes you'll absorb it less. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that one I did. I just wanted to get done. That's like a weird thing I have. I just wanted it to be over. I'm like that with food too. Like I rarely do I care about like sitting and enjoying like a meal. I just want to like get it in me, not in a sexual way, and just like
you want to consume it,
yeah,
get it over
get
with.
The nutrients and be done. And like I'll eat chicken just like bare and like be done, which is like gross to a lot of people, but no. I don't know. That's how I am. I like it. You know. Do you have any weird habits?
A bunch, bro. But I mean, it's interesting how what is qualified versus weird or not, right? Because I don't know if it is actually that weird at all to consume things at 2x speed. Maybe your brain is just moving faster.
What if that's normal speed and the rest of the world is in 0.5 speed? You know?
Exactly. Cliff Weitzman of Speechify has talked about this. He created a company that allows you to listen to articles faster than normal, and that's
pretty good.
And it's an incredible company. It was number one at the App Store.
Really, like articles, like blogs,
blog posts as well. Like imagine listening to Tim Urban's blog post at 2x speed or 3x speed. Like
yeah, I've done that. I've seen apps like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
So it's like you can only consume information that is at your wavelength and is at the speed at which you are accustomed to the world. If you're accustomed to the world at 1x speed, it would be weird to consume audio at 0.5 speed, right?
Yeah.
It would be almost impossible. You'd be like, what's going on? Why is this? And that's the way for people reading a lot. Their brain is moving faster than the words that they can consume per minute. And so for a lot of my life, I've said, oh, maybe I should slow down and I should meditate but it's also helpful to speed up sometimes, and you get more done sometimes when you speed up as well.
Yeah, the speed thing is funny. Yeah, it's like, something I've been thinking a lot about is just like how the world is basically built for average people to live like normal lives. And that if you just do one thing with like a little extra intensity, you can usually live like the returns aren't just like 1x more, they're like 100x more.
Yeah.
And like,
especially in the internet world.
Especially in the internet world. And like there are less people creating content than you think, I think also. That's another big one. There are so many, but there are less good ones. It's like this law, like 99% of everything is horrible. There's like a lot, someone named that, and it's true.
Yeah.
Like think about the amount of people you follow even.
Yeah.
I only follow like a few hundred people. That's not a lot. Like if you put something good out that's actually like I'm interested in it, I'm probably going to follow. You know what I mean? I think people underestimate that. Like there's so much out there, but if you actually just make something good, the odds of you gaining some traction is pretty high, I think.
Well, I think it was James Clear who talked about like A+ work isn't just 2 times better than A- work. It's 100 times better.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah. That's the other thing with the internet. Like the best really does win everything. Yeah. You're the best at one thing. But I don't know. I think it's true. And I mean that on like a very granular example. Like you can just pick up the phone, you have something to sell, and you can call like 1,000 people or 2,000 people over a week, you're probably going to be successful.
Right.
And it's just like doing that little extra, it's a lot, but it's like not that crazy. It's not that hard. A lot of people can do it. Anyone can do that at different skills. But yeah, the world is built for average people. And like, that sounds like kind of douchey to say, but I think it's true though. Like there are systems in place, like school.
Yeah.
It's like I heard this once about someone who did school quickly. Like it's built for the average person to succeed, the curriculum. And so that's why smart people can go do the curriculum quickly.
Derek Sivers.
He might have said that.
Yeah.
I think he did. Yep. He's awesome, Derek Sivers. He's
He
good.
is.
Has there been anyone you've been really into lately, obsessed with? Any like creators or books or anything? I like talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I know you do. Well,
We've been like higher level. We can talk about like some specific stuff.
yeah, no, the person who captivated me yesterday, literally yesterday, I just did a deep dive, was Andrew Tate and figuring out how he's owned the internet. And
What'd you find?
it was just fascinating how he has got this affiliate structure and how he, says provocative things. And I really enjoyed how he was able to take provocative statements and blur the lines between saying them as a troll and saying them as a real person. And I don't agree with everything he says, but I've been fascinated by how he's approached social media.
I haven't gone too deep down the rabbit hole with him, but I've seen him. I watched one video with him. Yeah. I think that's why he's been successful. You don't agree with everything.
Yeah.
That's why people look at him.
Yeah.
He's like, he did a good job like making the character of Andrew Tate, I think.
Polarizing. Like we were talking
yeah.
about before.
I've been thinking about it a lot. I wrote the other day, like the most interesting people are like paradoxes, and like they to bring up Hormozi again, I'm not going to say his ideas are mine, but he says like the people expect you to be one thing, but then you go and you're something else. And so I think with him, almost you expect him to be like this traditional business motivational guy, but then he says these things that are like so left field, and like it really makes you look. And I think he's done that well. You also like, he really does like, there are characters out there, like, and I'm trying to do this in my content, like down the line, especially like when I do more video stuff, like there are unique things about people that they become known for, like Lex Friedman and his suit,
Yeah.
And
you know what I was thinking about? It's like you could tell a brand from a person on Instagram, but why? Like when you just look at their avatars, right? You're like, oh, that's a person, that's a brand.
Do you mean like, what do you mean by brand? Like,
I mean like why? So a brand being like, I don't know, Coca-Cola.
oh, I thought you were talking about like a person.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a personal brand. Okay.
Yeah, so you could look at Coca-Cola and you could look at Zach and be like, oh, that's a person, Zach, and that's a brand. But like, why don't brands create characters themselves?
The best ones are, I think. Ted Lasso, did you see that? Ted Lasso, did you see the show?
I saw bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, great show. But they literally had social media characters for Ted, and I believe some other of the characters in the show as well. Like the soccer team got hundreds of millions of views.
So smart.
How smart is that?
But like consumer brands, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a show where it's media and that makes sense. How can consumer brands start using characters into their
Well, I think like some
social media?
Do you mean just like using like influencers, like core influencers?
Maybe.
A lot of them are doing that.
Maybe you put The Rock as the face of this brand and
He has his own brand. His tequila,
Yeah, definitely.
It's pretty sick. The numbers on that brand are insane.
Yeah.
I don't remember them, but I remember hearing them and they were like insane. And yeah.
Well,
they
personal brands are eating everything, and that's what we're finding, like Logan Paul, Prime, and
yeah, there's companies like Morning Brew, I think, are doing that really specifically. There's another one too called Work Week. Have you seen that on Twitter?
With Trung.
Yep. Like they're literally, their business, I think, is just like find these creators, and that's the media company, just the creators, as far as I know. And I think he's trying to find like new creators too. Like there's someone there who have very small followings, I think.
Oh, Nick Sharma is buying Work Week? Oh, is behind Work Week? Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Oh, that's cool.
That's fascinating.
Oh, that's good to know.
Small world.
I think I saw he was like a creator on it, but he's like involved in the company too.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. Yeah, so like you're right, you're totally right. Personal brands of the future.
And they're also the current, and that's why we're here today and why we're friends.
Trying to, yeah.
Well, dude, this has been incredible. As always, lived up to the expectations. I'm incredibly grateful for you and for the shot glass.
We gotta take a shot of it one day.
We will.
You don't even drink that much, but like,
Yeah.
it's for the voice, you know.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
It's for the voice.
And it was the only thing I could find with MSG on it in the MSG store. Literally, it's all like sports jerseys.
Wow.
But makes
We'll
sense.
take it. So behavior hack on Instagram, on Twitter, Zach,
ZACH, P as in Peter, OGROB.
and anywhere else you'd like to send people?
Yeah, you can subscribe to the newsletter, behaviorhack.substack.com, and the photo booth company, Peak Photo Booths, PEAK photobooths.com. If you're in the Northeast and want a photo booth, we got you.
And wait, final thing is a challenge for people listening. I ended this with Tejas Haller. We had a challenge for creators. We had a challenge for just anybody watching. And I'm curious,
What was
as
his
somebody,
challenge?
his challenge was about, for creators, it was post something that's authentic to you. For anyone, it was take 24 hours, don't watch your phone or don't look at your phone or disconnect from the internet for 24 hours.
That's hard.
Yeah, that's
That'll drive people
difficult.
insane.
But do you have a final challenge for anybody listening, whether it's about obsession or just about anything that you found helpful?
Yeah. You know the DM I get the most actually about
The
like
DM you get the most?
Yeah, like saying thank you for, which I don't get like crazy amount, but I've gotten like dozens of these, which is crazy. It's just about like content, like putting yourself out there. And like people who've grown bigger audiences than me that said I helped them like to do something. Cause that so I would just say like, you know, try posting something every day for a month. And it doesn't even have to be good. It's just something. And it's pretty crazy what you'll have after that, I think. You know,
Try posting every day for a month.
on whatever
Love
platform
that.
you want and just like commit to a month. That's what I did when I started. I said I was going to do it every day for a year. So if you want to really try, go for a year because you're basically going to have something after that. And then you'll be able to decide, do I want to keep doing this or not?
Yeah.
You know? And yeah, so if, you know, try a month. If you really want to go hard, try a year, but you have to do it. You really have to.
Every single day.
Every day has to be one thing. That's the one thing I committed to when I started it.
I think Jack Butcher said it's almost impossible to put out something every single day for a year on the internet and not have a job at the end of it. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So great
That's a
challenge. I love it.
Something, anything, just something. If you want some specific advice, look at a book called Show Your Work by Austin Kleon. And he has a great section where he talks about like things to share, like processes, checklists, inspirations. So like, use that. There's like 30 things on there. There you go.
Cool. Thank you so much, Zach.
No
for the
problem,
challenge
man.
and for being here.
No problem, man.
You're
A lot
the
of
man.
fun.
Thank
A lot of
you.
fun.